Welcome, dear listener. Today, we journey into a tale from the heart of the village, where the red earth holds secrets and the Irako tree has seen generations rise and fall. This is not just a story of one family, but a lesson for every home. It is a tale of love and envy, of choices and their heavy price. Sit with me and listen well, for what you are about to hear will remind us all that jealousy is a fire, and those who carry are always the first to burn. Before we unravel on today's story, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you're watching from. You're watching the IFY Creative Pen, your sweet storyteller. In a quiet village where red earth baked in the sun, there lived a man named Obi. He was a hard-working farmer, known for his yam barns and the respect he carried in the community. Obi had once been married to a gentle woman named Ngozi, but fate took her away too soon, leaving him with a son named Chike. Chike was strong and bright-eyed, the type of child who made elders smile with his quick greetings and polite bow. But loneliness crept into Obi's life, and after years of mourning, he married again. His new wife, Adanna, came into the household with her own daughter, Ifeoma. Adanna was beautiful to look at, her skin smooth like polished calabash, her voice honeyed when speaking to outsiders. Yet behind closed doors, she carried a heart blackened with envy. She saw how Obi loved Chike, and how the villagers praised him. She saw how her own daughter, Ifeoma, though lively, was often compared to Chike's cleverness and humility. Bitterness grew in her chest like thorns. At first, it showed in small ways, an extra chore thrown Chike's way, a harsher word when he forgot to sweep, a smaller portion of soup in his bowl. Obi, blinded by Adanna's charm, did not notice. The villagers whispered that Adanna's eyes held shadows, but no one dared speak openly to Obi. One season, the harvest was rich, and Obi slaughtered a goat to celebrate. Families gathered, drums sounded, palm wine flowed. Adanna smiled through it all, but inside her jealousy burned hotter. That night, when everyone had gone to sleep, she whispered to Ifeoma, "My daughter, one day you will shine brighter than Chike. One day, no one will compare you to him again." Ifeoma, only a child, nodded, not fully grasping the venom in her mother's words. Days turned into weeks, and Adanna's hatred deepened. Then one morning, when Obi traveled to the next village to buy tools, she saw her chance. She prepared a pot of thick egusi soup. As she stirred, she dropped into the bubbling pot a small packet of powder she had hidden for months. Poison, given secretly by a healer who had once wronged Chike's mother's people. Her plan was simple. Chike would eat the soup and fall ill. He would waste away, and her daughter would be the only heir to Obi's wealth. She served the food with a smile, calling Chike first. But fate had its own plan. Ifeoma, who had been playing outside, rushed in hungry, and before Adanna could stop her, she dipped her hand into the bowl meant for Chike. "Mama, I am hungry," she said, already chewing a morsel of yam covered in the poisoned soup. Adanna's heart froze. She watched her daughter swallow, her eyes wide with dread. Chike reached for his portion, but before he could taste it, Ifeoma gasped. Her body trembled, her lips turned pale, and she collapsed onto the floor. The calabash of soup spilled across the earth. Chike screamed and called for help. Neighbors ran in, and Obi, returning earlier than expected, rushed into the compound. "What happened here?" his voice thundered. But no one could answer, for the truth hung in the air like smoke. Adanna fell to her knees, trembling, clutching her daughter, who now lay still. The poison meant for another had claimed her own flesh and blood. The courtyard filled with feet, voices, and dust. Obi gathered Ifeoma into his arms and ran. With Chike beside him and neighbors clearing the path, they burst into the small clinic by the market. Nurse Ebra did what she could. Checks, questions, the hurried search for a pulse. But the little girl's body had already gone quiet. She covered Ifeoma with a clean cloth and looked at Obi with eyes that said what her mouth struggled to form. Obi slumped into the bench outside and pressed both palms over his face. Chike stood like a tree in harmattan, dry and shaking, whispering that he was sorry even though he had done nothing wrong. Back at the compound, women gathered with wrappers tied tight. The Umwada, the Council of Daughters, arrived first. They were not the type to shout. They moved with a purpose handed down from their mothers and their mothers' mothers. Mama and Kem went straight to the kitchen. She lifted lids, sniffed pots, and peered behind the mortar. Mama Ifeoma checked the hearth and the ash. "Who cooked?" someone asked. Chike swallowed and said softly, "Mama Adanna." He used a respectful word. Even then, Adanna stayed in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, eyes fixed on the ground. When people looked at her, she pressed out tears. They were real tears. She had lost a child, but beneath them a second river ran, dark and fast. She tried to step into the kitchen, but Mama and Kem blocked her with a raised hand. "Not yet," the older woman said. From the ash pit, Mama Ifeoma lifted a small, folded paper half-scorched. Bitter smell tickled her nose. She called for a basin and tipped a crumb of powder into a leaf. Now Koro, the village herbalist, arrived with his walking stick. He did not taste. He only sniffed, rubbed the grain between finger and thumb, and watched the color wet against the veined lines of the leaf. "This is not spice," he said. "It is something people use to kill rats and stray dogs. Not food for a child." He shook his head, heavy with quiet anger. "Who keeps this in the kitchen?" Adanna's hands trembled. "I do not know what that is," she whispered. "Maybe someone brought it. People come in and out of this house." Her voice wavered, but her gaze flicked, quick, guilty, toward the mortar. Mom and Kem's eyes followed that flick. She reached behind the mortar and drew out a cloth sachet tied with string. The knot had been hurried. It came loose in one pull. Inside lay more the same dull, bitter powder. There are ways a village breathes when truth touches the edge of its lips. A hush fell, not the peace of evening, but the pause before thunder. Obi rose from the bench and came into the kitchen, face gray with grief. He looked at the sachet. He looked at Adanna. His mouth opened, then closed. "Who brought this into my house?" he asked, voice slow and even. "Answer me with the truth." Adanna leaned against the wall. The room seemed to shrink around her. Elder Madu came with the Ofo staff, thin and polished from many hands. He broke kola nut in the courtyard and spoke the old greeting. "Let the living speak with clean tongues," he said. "A child has died. We will not chase shadows. We will follow one path, the path of truth." He turned to Obi. "This matter must go two ways. We will inform the police, and we will hold a meeting under the Irako tomorrow at first light, so the community hears, and we keep our people from tearing each other apart with rumors." Word went ahead of evening like smoke. By dusk, 2 officers from the station leaned on a motorcycle outside the compound, writing in a notebook, asking calm questions. They took the sachet and the burned paper leaf in a small bag. They sealed the pot of soup. They told Obi not to bury the child yet until instructions came from their superiors. "We are sorry for your loss," the younger officer said to Obi, and he meant it. Before they left, Elder Madu placed 2 boys at the compound gate to sit the night with a lantern and keep away idle visitors. That night had no sleep. Chike could not push away the picture of Ifeoma laughing only that morning as she tied a string around a beetle to make it fly kite. He remembered how she loved to copy his handwriting and how she boasted she would count yams faster than him one day. He sat near the fire with Obi. The old man looked older than evening, shoulders bent. "Father," Chike said softly, "Ifeoma was like my sister." Obi nodded, jaw tight. "I know, my son." After a long silence, Obi added, "Whatever is hidden will come out, but let your heart not turn to stone. Hard hearts break people twice." In the small room across the corridor, Adanna sat alone on the floor. Grief clawed her as real as nails. She had told herself many things in the past months. How Chike cast a longer shadow, how her own daughter's brightness deserved a wider sky. She had thrown small stones of anger each day until they formed a wall. Now the wall had fallen on her. She pressed her forehead to the floor and wept. Then a thought took shape. Perhaps the powder would be blamed on a stranger. Perhaps she could say the market seller made a mistake. She rehearsed the words under her breath and hated herself for it, and still kept rehearsing. Before dawn, Cox broke the silence. The Irako tree in the square put down its shade like a roof. Men sat on benches. Women stood in clusters. The Umwada came first. Their rappers a united front. Elder Madu arrived with two other elders, Ozo Yud and Nana the blacksmith. The Ofo staff lay across Elder Madu's knees. When Obi and Chike walked in, the square opened a path without anyone saying a word. Adanna followed, head down, flanked by two women who had sat with her through the night, so she would not harm herself. The younger police officer stood to one side, notebook ready. "We are here only to observe for now," he told the elders, "and to collect statements. Anything that concerns the law will follow the law." Elder Madu raised a palm. "Agreed." "Another thing," Mama Ifeoma said, "because a child has died, we must be careful how we speak. Let no mouth carry more than the truth." They began with questions that walked, not ran. Who cooked? Who was present? Who tasted first? Where was the father? Did any visitor come? Each answer added one stick to the little fire of understanding. Then Mum and Kem held up the sachet the officers had sealed. "This was found behind the mortar," she said. "The knot was fresh. The smell is bitter. I have never kept such a thing in my kitchen." Faces turned toward Adanna. She lifted her head. "I do not know that sachet," she said. "I have never seen it before." Her voice sounded steady, but her eyes would not settle. The officer's pencil paused. Elder Madu's gaze did not blink. "If it is not yours, whose is it?" he asked. "I cannot say," Adanna answered. "Maybe the girl that helps me sometimes, the one who sells peppers. Or maybe the boy who brings firewood." A murmur rose. It held the sound of doubt. The Umwada shifted. They did not like the way suspicion travels toward small hands first. From the back of the crowd, an old woman's voice called, "Let me speak." Everyone turned. It was a widow, Mama Ifeoma, who had found the burned paper in the ash. She walked forward with steps that knew the ground well. "Yesterday morning," she said, "I came to borrow salt. I stood at the doorway and greeted. No one answered. I saw Dan at the hearth with a small paper in her hand. She was pouring something into the pot. I thought it was seasoning. I called her name. She jumped and turned the paper into fire. I did not think much of it until the child fell." Adanna's shoulders stiffened. "You lie," she said quickly. "I added only ground crayfish. The paper was wrapper from the market." The old woman stared at her for a long moment. "It will be well," she said quietly, not as a blessing, but as something that has to pass through fire first. Elder Madu looked at the police officer. "Write," he said. "Write everything." He turned back to Adanna. "Will you hold the Ofo and speak your truth? No one forces you, but understand the weight of it." The Ofo lay across his hands like a question no one wanted to answer. Adanna's breath came shallow. She reached, then pulled her hand back as if the wood were hot. Obi stood. "Whether she swears or not," he said, voice rough, "we will follow the law. We will also follow what our fathers taught us, that no house is strong if it lies for pillars." He faced Adanna. "If there is anything you are hiding, say it now. The soil does not keep secrets forever." The square fell quiet enough to hear a palm frond scrape the ground. On the far side, Chike stared at the earth where Ifeoma once hopped chalk squares. His eyes were dry now, but his face looked older by years. A thought flashed through him, something small he pushed aside. Months ago, Adanna had argued with a traveling seller, a thin man with a torn hat, near the old bridge. She had slipped him money and hushed him with her eyes when Chike came near. He had assumed it was market bargain. Now the picture returned like a lantern raised in a dark room. Chike stepped toward Elder Madu. "Sir," he said, "I remembered something. There's a man who sells things, roots, powders, near Isaac Bridge. I saw him speak to my stepmother weeks ago. I do not know what they discussed, but I can find him." "Do you know his name?" the officer asked. "No," Chike said, "but the tailor who mends by the bridge will know. That man buys thread there." The officer nodded. "We will go with you after this gathering." Before they could move on, a new voice cut in, sharp with anger. Emeka, Adanna's brother, pushed forward. "Enough," he shouted. "You people have already judged my sister. You look at her with stones in your hands. A child has died, and you turn on the mother like dogs. Who says the pepper seller did not bring poison? Who says the herbalist is not wrong? He jabbed a finger at Obi. You love that boy more than our Ifeoma. Everyone knows it. Maybe you put these things in place to push my sister out. A few men held Emeka by the arm, pulling him back, but the words had gone out like arrows. Obi did not move toward him. He only said softly, You have a right to speak your pain, but do not use it to hide the truth. Emeka's chest heaved. He looked at his sister. For the first time, he saw something in her face that frightened him. Fear mixed with knowledge. His hand fell to his side. From the edge of the gathering, the tailor from the bridge arrived, dust on his trousers. They said you were asking about the thin man with the hat, he told the officer. His name is Ikenna. He does not sleep in one place, but he has a habit. He sits by the bridge around sunset to catch travelers. If you go this evening, you will see him. Elder Madu rose. We will pause this meeting until evening, he said. Let the officers follow this thread our son has offered. Let the rest of us return to our homes and keep our tongues from spreading what we do not know. He turned to Adanna again. You will remain in your father's old house until we call you. Women of Mwada will keep watch with you, not as jailers, as witnesses. As people began to disperse in small groups, Obi set a hand on Chike's shoulder. We will go together, he said. We will not go with anger, only with light. Chike nodded. Adanna looked down at her hands. The lines in her palms seemed to her like roads that all led to the square. When Mwada touched her elbow to guide her, she did not resist. Evening brought a soft gold over the bridge. Motorcycles hummed, goats bleated, and the river beneath carried its own quiet. The young officer, Obi and Chike, waited where the tailor had pointed. A hawker shouted about roasted plantain, and boys in school uniforms chased each other along the verge. When shadows lengthened, a thin man appeared with a familiar torn hat, a bag slung across his chest, and a tired smile he wore like a mask.